Yeah, no, glad everybody's here. I gave it some thought. I did take a ride down there on, just myself to just kind of get a lay of the land, and that was helpful. But I thought, as indicated at the last meeting, that Tryon Street is, you know, it's an issue we have to deal with on several levels. And I thought it would be a good idea if we could engage our legislators in that process. It might be helpful. And Glastonbury has several representatives, Senator Pisano, there's a senator and two reps. And it might be that our two legislators can work jointly with them to see if there is some solution to the problems that these folks face out there. So that, those are my thoughts as far as Tryon Street. I think I'd like to, as I said, I'd like to see our legislators get engaged at the state level. And I think that there might, you know, they might be able to come up with some creative solutions. Certainly, we can give them any thoughts or guidance we might have.
To that end, I got a call late today from Maureen, who works at Christy Carpino's office. And she said that I believe she and someone from, I'm not going to have trouble saying his name, but he's a representative from Sravakan?
The state rep is Saravasan, yeah.
Saravasan.
Saravasan, yeah.
And what they discussed, I think there were 6 residents there, and what they discussed was basically trying to get the road that has a tendency to flood,
Mhm.
to get that repaired. And she, the aide from Representative Carpino's office, asked that the residents write to my office and to the town manager's office in Glastonbury, asking us if we could work together and maybe have another meeting with them, as well as the other senator and representatives. Their thought being that maybe there is some public safety money or some FEMA money that Glastonbury could access
Mhm.
to repair that road. They didn't indicate to the meeting that they wanted to have any changes to their place of living. In other words, they didn't talk about not living in Portland. They expressed to the representatives' aides that they're happy, they like our school system, they like living in Portland, but as far as the road is concerned, it's concerns there. And then they suggested that the town mail them the River East. Because
The
river-
town mail?
Yeah. And I really can't say that I can do that.
No, of course not.
But I think what they're emphasizing is they love the River East and they'd love to be able to get it delivered to their house.
And why won't the River East deliver to them?
Because what they do with the way they deliver by the postal number, 06480 or 06226, or whatever the zip code is, they take them to that post office and that's how they get delivered, by zip code. And because all of the mail, per the US Post Office, not per Glastonbury Citizen or River East, but per the US Postal Service, they get their mail out of the South Glastonbury Post Office. Because I had checked on that with our postmistress here, and she said, I don't make up the rules, that's just the way it is, and you can't change it, so that's the way it is.
Maybe we could have who's the reporter for the River East? Perhaps they could deliver that.
You can just stick it in a Glastonbury Citizen, no one knows.
You could put it, whatever. It,
I wonder if.
they can get them at the post office, I can tell you that. And they can get them, in the library, but they have to physically. Hi, Ann, we're in a subcommittee meeting right now. No,
No, you're welcome.
stay here, if you're so, if you could stay awake, no.
Maybe-
7:30, yeah. But just no, you can stay, Ann, I just wanted to let you know we're not talking about the cul-de-sac, just, okay, yep. So that's all I had to report, Fred, on that.
Just one quick thought, and then maybe someone else can have some have an expert here too, which is good. We can get that counsel. I wonder if the high school, as a project, a government project, if they could, if there would be any interest in, through one of the teachers in the class, for them to try to come up with, here's a very practical problem, and see if they come up with an idea,
Yeah.
or a list of ideas of trying to deliver a newspaper in that scenario. Maybe they'll come up with a solution we don't come up with.
Sometimes.
And, a little tongue in cheek, but
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that you never know. Anyone else have a comment?
Say the town were to pay for it. Do you know any idea what that would cost?
More than the cost, I'd be concerned that I wouldn't get it. That it comes on Friday,
Mhm.
I'd have to mail it, and then they wouldn't get it maybe till
You couldn't just
Monday, and I'd have to remember.
pay the reverse the postage for
I
a
don't
year?
think that's the
You
issue.
can-
I don't know.
I'm just.
It's possible, but I don't
throwing out
know, right?
ideas
It'd
that-
have to be, the way it's mailed is bulk mail, and it's mailed per zip code. Now, could you put it in an envelope and send it to 8 people or 8 residences? Sure. It could be done out of my office, but I will not guarantee that I can get that done every Friday by noon.
That's not the town's responsibility.
No. You have any thoughts on Tryon Street?
Yeah, I mean, I read the article and it agrees, and I think there were some concerns about public safety, which caught my attention. And, I mean, on the
Why?
post office, on the post office side, I mean, yeah, I don't think you'll see a postal truck enter another district to get into theirs. That's the issue. Old Maze Lane is Glastonbury, and the end of it on the left is Portland, so they have to leave their town to go back to a street. So that might be, one of the reasons, obviously, that they probably wouldn't.
Aren't they federal?
Yep, but they'll still stay in their PO district.
It's interesting because in West Hartford, one of the West Hartford firehouses is in Hartford.
Hmm.
So we come off the apron
No,
and move.
on Prospect Street.
But in terms of public safety, obviously, we have a very definite plan for Tryon Street. We always have. And it consists of many different facets depending on how a 911 call is received. The 911 calls are transferred based on the exchange that the homeowner has. Cell phones will go to a tower and they'll be distributed depending on how the tower picks it up. So a lot of times somebody can call from a cell phone closer to a highway or that, and they'll go to a troop. They'll go to the state police and they'll transfer it. Home phones obviously go to, wherever they're linked, what dispatch center is that. I believe that those particular houses may go to Glastonbury, the 911 call.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
And it's an automatic transfer once they find out what side of Tryon Street they're on, which, that comes to the responsibility of the caller to be able to give a clear description of where they're located so that we can get that information transferred over to us. There's very little delay. Glastonbury Dispatch is a great dispatch center. They transfer automatically just by a button push to Middletown, and then we're dispatched, to our location. With that said, structure fires or potential of a structure fire or a water rescue or any other type of rescue in that area, both departments respond to Tryon Street. It's an automatic response. So they're getting units from Glastonbury as well as our units. And the reason for that is part of our mutual aid policy regarding outlying areas in town I've incorporated over the years to make sure that resources are coming from both ends because we're both far away. So that solves the problem of delay. We're able to work on our frequencies together. We have the communication capability to talk to each other. That way we can make sure that any issue related to an emergency is mitigated quickly and we have resources on board. Medical calls, that'll be directed based on Tryon Street, the location. Glastonbury has their own transport service, it's their own ambulance. They would get their EMTs or their ambulance, actually, because they're not technically an R1 responder. On the Portland side, we respond as an R1 response like we do to the 700-plus calls we do every year. Hunters is our transport service. Hunters has no issue finding Tryon Street, they've been there before. They're directed by us. They know the cross streets, they're all GPS now, times have changed. Although, at times we have to direct them in a little quicker. So that really has never been an issue. The big issue related to the road is one, but the many times that we've contacted them, or the residents in that area, depending on flooding that was potentially dangerous to those residents, they've really wanted to stay. And that seems to happen in all our small communities along the river. In the Grove Street, down in George Barton's area, they stay, they're used to it, they watch the river. The most important part.
Now it's up in George Barton's area.
Well, it's funny, they move their
Way
boats to
up.
one side, they park their cars
I
in
think
different
I'm flooded.
locations
Really?
because they're familiar with it.
Heaven.
If you're new to the area, I guess,
Heaven.
you need to talk.
Oh.
We have the capability of getting through that area when it floods. We do have a new vehicle that we acquired a few years ago, which makes it much easier than, using our Zodiac to get across that water to the other side and transport people to where they can be transported on the other side of where the water comes across the road. Now we can drive right through it, basically.
Okay.
With that new military deuce that we have, we're pulling people out of their cars at the fairgrounds every year, because they can't read 6 signs or the roadblocks. But, so that is great access for us to get to the residents, so that's a much bigger benefit over the past 2 years. They have to take charge. They wanna live in that scenic area, close to the river, they enjoy to be there. It's important that they take full responsibility to watch and monitor the river, making sure that they're fully aware of what's happening as far as flood stage. Not the town's responsibility to do that. Emergency management, we did it, and we will continue to do it to try to alert those residents that we may have potential flooding and stuff. But it's important for them to realize that they picked a nice place to live next to the river, just like building a house 1,400 feet off the road. The potential for us to get water to your home is going to be limited at the very least, initially. So, it's kind of a risk that they take. I think most of them are fully aware of that risk and are good. But, some of the questions regarding public safety, I think simply that, we're covered. I don't think there's much more we can do unless you want to build a firehouse down on Old Mains Lane. Our average response time to your front door is 4 minutes.
That's pretty good.
And those are volunteers coming from home.
Yeah.
So the town should be really proud of that. It hasn't changed, it's actually gone down. Our call volume continually goes up. It's up again this year to record numbers. We're doing about 1,100 calls a year, which is a lot of calls for a population of 9,000. So.
And what, is it mostly medical?
About 700 of those are medical.
7, how much more is it up than last year?
We're raising 2-3% a year. We had a really big year 2 years ago.
I don't know what that means in numbers.
Medical is,
Is the medical the most responsible for the increase?
I think it's a big portion of it, absolutely. I mean, you read the stories, in the paper that there's less kids coming into the school. Our population, I feel important based on what we see is getting older. You're not seeing younger families.
Yeah.
You're seeing older individuals that unfortunately are getting
Just be careful here.
that are having some health concerns, which are, making us a little busier each and every day. So we are challenged, I'll tell you that. We are challenged to continue to keep up with our call volume based on our activity. Remember, fire department members are citizens, they're getting older too.
So, yeah, as far as Tryon Street, jumping back to that for a minute, in the worst case scenario, in a fire and a flood, that would be a problem in terms of getting the structure, I would assume.
Absolutely.
That would be.
It's a difficult area as it is, it's a tanker area basically, but yeah.
so getting somebody out's not a problem, but as far as a structure fire and flood, that wouldn't work.
Yeah, that's gonna be a risk benefit. We're gonna do life safety issues and get people moved to safe locations. And unfortunately, the property's gonna take a pretty big hit. If there's flooding in that area, we can't get to the other side. We will do our best. We can
Mhm.
stretch 5-inch lines across a very big puddle.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit.
Yeah.
The problem is getting your apparatus to that side.
No.
And our boat. Our boat can get very close to those residents.
One at the end.
They have 500 gallon per minute, they'll pump on it, and pull a lot of water off our boat. But it's difficult. Yeah, we practice fighting fires from our boat with hand lines off the boat only as your source. The boat ends up being basically fire trucks. We do that for marinas, for the houses that are close to the river, we might have to do that. But it is, there is, when any flooding, it's gonna cut your access off. You can get people, structures. So if we can fix that road, if we find some money, money to, grant money or whatever, to try to raise that area that's depressed, how they would do that, I'm not sure, because I know somebody's gonna say it's in front of the river, it's.
Too close,
you
yeah.
can't touch that land.
Mm.
So, that would help us.
Yes. I think
Mr.
it's a good
Chairman.
suggestion.
Yes.
We have 7 minutes left, and I don't want to minimize the importance of the Tryon Street
Okay.
issues, but there are some other issues that we need to address, and we don't have much time.
Okay, point well taken. Yeah, I think there's consensus on this issue anyway, and we can go forward on that.
Absolutely.
Mark, what do you?
There are 2 areas that I'd like to see if we can get some funding from the state for 2 areas. One is, I would love it if we could get at least 1 and hopefully 2 of those signs that are in the road when you approach. It tells you your speed. And I think that would go a long way to helping us with the problem that we have with speeders in the community. So if we, I don't know if you guys agree.
Yeah, I think that's a great
Yes,
idea.
I do.
So I would
I
like to
agree.
see if we could get some funding for that.
Mhm.
And the other thing is, we're told that we're making good progress with trimming back the trees to protect us in the event of storms too, so that we don't have massive power outages again. But I frankly don't see huge progress. And it's very, very expensive. And there's only so much manpower that Rick has to go around. So I'm wondering, clearly the state has taken this, this effort very seriously. If you drive down the Merritt or Wilbur Cross parkways, they have done tremendous amount of cutting back.
Mhm.
And I'd like to see, I mean, they're gonna tell us they don't have any money, but if we don't ask, we don't stand a shot. And I'd like to see if there's some money from them to help us increase our efforts, whether it's in hiring more people or hiring an outside company, whatever, to help with trimming back those trees. Those were the only issues that I was concerned with.
Yeah, I think they're both good points, and I would support it here.
I went over, you emailed us that legislative priorities from the.
Oh, from CCM?
Yeah, and I went through that.
Yeah.
I didn't see a heck of a lot that we needed to pick up on.
I don't think so. I think those were more general nature. I agree. Yeah.
Okay, good.
And I know that they often will put things in that don't cost money, because as a lobbying group, they've been asked, don't ask for much more than
Yeah.
what you got. But these are not of a substantive
This isn't a huge
nature.
amount of
No.
money that they're asking for. And if they're serious about what they're talking about, maybe they'll give us some money.
It's good suggestions.
Yeah, those are good thoughts.
What's that?
Do you have anything you wanted to?
Yeah.
No, I didn't have anything. I do like both of those suggestions, though. I think that's really, because that's what we had discussed previously. I mean, the
Yeah.
speeding and the tree trimming seem to be.
We don't want you pulled over anymore on Main
I
Street.
know, I got it. Gotta keep my speed down.
Thank you. Go back to Tryon Street if you want.
I think we're all set. No, I think those were good thoughts, and I had down speeding Route 66. And the only thing, and as an add-on to that, they might, our legislators might check to see if there's any research or whether new research could be done regarding the safety aspects of 66, Route 66, in terms of the frequency of accidents and whether it's a major, considered a major hazard highway.
Especially out by the ledges.
Yeah, out through the ledges.
That's a good point.
Susan, don't you have a meeting coming up on that?
Well, I am gonna be, meeting with someone from the Department of Transportation, and he, got in touch with me because Chief Salvatore in Cromwell had read about what we're trying to do, and he had put us in touch with one another. And it appears that this section of DOT, will potentially have some dollars to help us out, whether it's dollars for additional staffing to do the DUI checkpoints, or whether it's purchasing of various pieces of equipment that might be helpful. And I'll certainly get in touch with him. Lieutenant Millardo and I are gonna go meet with him, and I will ask about this potential, and I'll get back to you.
Well, I think we're all set, and we can forward those suggestions to our
Yep,
legislators.
I will put that together and send that off. Thank you.
Okay, do we need to adjourn our subcommittee?
Yep,
Yeah.
I think that would be good.
All right. Motion by Mark, I think.
Yes,
Was there a
adjourn.
second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Adjourned, very good.
Thank you, Fred. Hey, Sean? Sean, I got some mail that I wanted to give to you. We're not in session anymore.
This subcommittee was the legislative.
This is for
Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item is approval of minutes, and I'll ask for a motion for the December 4th, 2013 minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. For the December 18th minutes, I had a couple of suggested changes before we move approval. On page 2, it said that George Law and Terry Larson are up for reappointment on the Ethics Commission. A correction should be that only Terry Larson is up for reappointment. And on page 3, we were speaking about it was actually under informal discussion, I believe. And it says, agreement on the assessment must be completed by January 31, 2014 for the grand list. That was the special assessment that was helping in terms of economic development. Remember that one? And the next sentence says, regardless, the applicant will get the benefit, but the applicant will decide when they want the tax break. And I'm not sure that's exactly what we said. I'm not sure that the applicant decides when the tax break occurs. Do you remember that? Or shall we just leave it as it is?
I remember talking about it, but can I take a look at that again?
I lined it.
Okay.
I think that referred to the conversation where we were talking about they could have an option in 1 year or the other. We did talk about that, but can I see again?
I just don't want it to seem like people have the option to decide when a tax break occurs. It's actually the Board of Selectmen that decides that.
Well, there was no action taken, was there?
I just want to be, that was a part of a discussion, Mark.
Yeah, so discussion doesn't even have to be in the minutes.
Okay. Well, you can leave it there, or you can ask that it not be there. What's your pleasure? Do you wanna leave it there? Since
Well,
it's
if we're
part of
not
a
sure of its
discussion?
accuracy, maybe we just strike it.
So if we could just make a correction that the sentence reading, regardless, the applicant will get the benefit, but the applicant will decide when they want the tax break, would be stricken. And with those two changes, is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended? Moved by Brian, seconded by Ryan. Any further changes? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
You know, if that becomes an issue later on, we can always check the tape.
Sure, yep. But I just didn't want it to reflect that the applicant decides when a tax break occurs. If you take that literally, I think that was, I know that was discussed, but I think if someone picks that up and they weren't at the meeting, it might mislead them, so. The next item is acceptance of the agenda. We do not need, under new business, item D as in David, the Emergency Management Performance Grant Program. We were able to use a resolution that we previously had adopted, so we don't need to do that tonight. And with that one change, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Moved by
Second.
Brian, seconded by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Now, we have two items tonight. We have a blight update from Lincoln White, and then we have a presentation from Sagewell on energy efficiency thermal imaging program. And then we have public comment, then we have work on our policies, appointments, and then the discussion on the Strickland Street cul-de-sac proposal, which my office did send a letter to the neighbors so that they would be aware that we were talking about this tonight. And I thank you for coming, and I also have some items in emails that I'll be reading. But if the selectmen are okay, we'll proceed with the agenda as presented. Okay, so if you bear with us. The first is the blight update, and Lincoln is here to give us an update. This was requested by Ryan. Lincoln is our building official, and he's also our official that enforces and monitors the relatively new blight ordinance. Welcome.
Good evening, thank you. Good to be back. As you were introducing us, I realized I don't have the date of when we actually adopted the blight. Has it been a year, just about?
I think it's more than a year.
It's like 2.
Yeah.
Neither here nor there. Thanks for having me back. I handed out a tracking list for you to have for your review. The first page is blight issues, and then the second one, or resolved blight issues, whichever way they happen to be stapled together. To date, we have a total of 34 different properties in town that have been noticed, sent a letter to, acted on as far as blight is concerned. 14 of those issues are continuing. We're monitoring those. 20 have so far been resolved.
Lincoln, I do have the date. Actually, I think we
When was it?
started a couple years ago on the draft, but the final draft was adopted May 2nd, 2012.
Okay, thank you. So we're coming up on a 2-year anniversary then, yeah. We are just dealing with the property themselves rather than the owners' names of the property on our tracking sheet. We just have a basic nature of the violation and some tracking dates of when a complaint might have been submitted, or if I notice it and pull it up or create an inspection, a notice of violation date when that goes out as an attempt to track, and then deadlines that were given in order to gain compliance. Most of the first letters or notifications that go out are what we call a request for voluntary compliance. It's a simple introductory notice that states that there appears to be one or more potential regulatory or ordinance violations on the property, and to contact the checked-off departments that are listed below with emails and phone numbers. That creates a contact to our office via phone. Most of the time it's phone, and then a what's up. So we get a chance to discuss with the folks what the problem happens to be, and that's where most of the resolution occurs. It's just a simple conversation. Very inviting versus just slapping citations out there. So far, I think we've been quite successful in applying the blight to many properties in town. There are still some ways to go on old historical ones. Out on Glastonbury Turnpike, just as a matter of inference, the property was noticed as blighted. The one that recently burnt was noticed as blighted in September, and in that, since then, the owners has a conservator, and there's also negotiations for purchase that have been, that included my office as far as the expected treatment of that property, when or if that gets sold, with a time, you know, it gets drawn out as we get busy and things happen. But I think this ought to be fairly clear for you as things go on. Are there any questions or?
Questions? Mark?
There was a property on Main Street, I don't remember the number, but it was 397 to 403 or something, where there was tall grass, the grass wasn't mowed.
399.
399, okay.
That went through the
And I know
hearing
the grass
process.
isn't growing now.
Yeah.
But
It did get cut.
but it didn't all get cut.
It got roughly cut.
Then it
was-
got cut again.
Yeah.
But the front portion of it.
It did, you're correct, Mark. They went to our citation hearing board, and the citation hearing board gave a deadline. The deadline came, and only the grass above the state right-of-way was cut.
Right.
And then there was a period of maybe a few weeks, and I know that one of our police officers went and spoke with the owner, and the owner then cut, albeit not every blade, but quite a bit of the grass was cut in the right-of-way as well.
Okay. Is this gonna be an ongoing problem, do you expect?
It very well may be.
I think it's great that so many of these have been resolved. Congratulations, and thank you.
Thank you. You're
Thank you.
welcome. It's quite satisfying, actually,
I'm
for our
sure.
staff in office.
I'm sure.
Anything else?
Yeah, well, the reason why I just wanted you to come was because of that fire. Just, I was concerned, because I know it was, I think it was vandalism, that it wasn't?
Well, it depends on your definition.
Okay.
There was a crime committed there.
Mhm.
It wasn't just vandalism, but rather someone was stealing from the property.
Okay.
And in the act of taking things, a fire was started.
Mhm.
And so I'm not certain that an arrest has been made yet. I know that there is action toward that end. Lincoln's efforts very often work hand in hand with police. In that particular case, that property not only had a blight citation, let's call it, but also the health department had been involved there, and other officials had been involved. But more recently, it was the blight that was involved there. But that was someone on the property stealing. And that is, as Ryan has pointed out, I think very accurately, when properties are abandoned or properties are not cared for and no one is there, there is the potential for people to go in and steal things or misuse the property or vandalism and so forth. So one of the reasons that we have this ordinance is to alert the owners that they do have to have the responsibility to take care of that property, so you are correct.
To add to that, the banks are still foreclosing. There are still foreclosures being filed in the town hall pretty steadily. The banks are becoming a little more responsive to these foreclosure or abandoned properties. And we can discuss, Susan and I, further on about how far we go with the foreclosed properties, which can be a year before anybody can go near it. Other than the bank that's foreclosing. Even the bank can't go near it until
Is
it's.
that building, is that beyond saving?
Which
at
one?
this
The,
point?
at the Glastonbury Turnpike burned?
Yeah.
Absolutely, that is an order to demolish, and remove.
Are there two buildings?
Yeah, there's a house right up
The
against the
house.
road.
Mhm.
Apparently, that's not worth saving either.
Yeah.
And is expected to be demolished.
Okay, so eventually we'll be
Mhm.
taken down.
Yep, and possibly within this year, there's some pretty active negotiations for purchase and use.
Yeah, because that's really what I was concerned about, were just the abandoned properties, most of all, that can, attract,
Mhm.
attract whatever theft, vandalism. And if no one's home, no one's gonna watch it, that's pretty much where most crime occurs. So, I don't know, I thank you, though, you're doing a good job. It's really comforting to see all these resolved matters, and then, we've got these troublemakers, but.
It's a fair amount of time
Yeah.
that is taken, obviously, and it's well worth it. I think it's important to have our building official who is schooled and skilled in the structures and what needs to be done in terms of these properties. So, thank you very much, Lincoln. It's good to see
Welcome.
you.
Can I just ask,
Brian?
out of
Sure.
curiosity, how many foreclosed or bank-owned properties are in Portland, and how many of them are issues?
I couldn't tell you. I would have to check that out with Bernie. The town clerk has those. She received 6 this month.
Yes.
Notice
She
of
gave us a report
foreclosure.
today at our
And they can go and come and
Are
go.
a number of them issues, from
Um,
a flight standpoint?
They tend to be, they close them up, they react a little better. A bank will come out and board it up. They're definitely on the list, yeah. What I really want to discuss with Susan Moore is, the building code has an abandoned property section that was recently added, which allows for the town to purchase and board the things up to a certain standard, including removing all the combustible materials, shutting the power off, and really putting it in a position of boarded up, painted, similar to the Main Street garage. That's a much more extensive procedure, really, to do that, is to go on the property and do it. What I try to do is get the property owners to do it, is to actually board things up. But if it's not a broken window, it's not a fire hazard either.
There would have to be serious contemplation as to whether we do that or
Yeah.
not, because it could become very burdensome. And I know
Very much so.
a city in Connecticut has done that, and when they went in and made some of these repairs, they don't get their money back.
Mm.
And there's, I think, just an article recently about Hartford.
Hartford.
And they had a property that they just, I believe they just went in and fixed. There's something in the paper today, I haven't had a chance to
Mhm.
read it. But their coffers are a little different than Portland's.
Yeah.
Is there anything on our end that we could do to expedite anything? And like, does citations even matter if the home is in foreclosure? What good does that do at that point?
I think it motivates the banks
Yeah.
to say, whoa, the last thing we want is hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars worth of liens on the property.
Mhm.
So I've gotten a pretty quick email. We had a foreclosure on Main Street, and pipes burst. Bank was notified, and within 3 days, they got back to me. What do we need to do?
It's a motivation.
Yeah.
So have we
Incentive.
cited, say, the one on 17?
No, no, because I feel that as the owners or the conservators are in cooperation and keeping me posted on how things are going, with moving forward and trying to bring their lives together, the properties together. I don't want to just start sending citations out. I want to keep them working with me.
Okay.
So it's,
Yeah, the first step is voluntary compliance. and when
Yeah.
Most of what Lincoln has said, most people do reply, and they do want to make improvements. There are certain legal requirements for some of these properties, and it does take time in order for them to be able to do certain
But
things.
hasn't that one been there, blighted for years now? I mean, how much
But
time?
the blight
are
ordinance
we-
has been in place for.
only a little while.
Yeah, about a couple of years, but previous to that, we didn't
I know-
have this.
I mean, how much time are we giving them, is my question. How come
Well,
we're
there's
giving them
voluntary
more time?
compliance right now, is what Lincoln's saying.
There is voluntary.
In
Yeah, there-
terms of the process that they're going through. The owner is in a conservatorship arrangement, and there's some legal action that's occurring. It's not that they're ignoring.
And the property's in a state of, they've boarded up the front house,
Mhm.
and they've fenced off the burn structure.
Mhm.
That's step one, keep people from easily accessing.
Mhm.
And that really can be compliance a lot of the time, so long as people aren't able to actually physically get in.
Mhm.
That property's been there for a long time and it was built in non-compliance, was told to make it go away and it never went away. So we're making progress.
Okay, just wanna
But
make
one
sure
thing
unnecessary.
you could
That's
consider
one of
during
the
budget
biggest ones, yeah.
time is, our staff goes home at 2 on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. A couple more hours a week could help, absolutely. And being able to, really, it's the quick pickup and follow-up
Yeah.
that is needed.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Lincoln. The next item is a presentation on, from Sagewell Incorporated, and it's a presentation on the Energy Efficiency Thermal Imaging Program. And we have a guest here tonight, and Andy Bauer will introduce our guest.
Thank you, Susan. Hello, everybody. Since the last time I appeared and spoke before you, Portland was fortunate enough to be awarded as a pilot community for the thermal imaging program. Tim D'Souza is here tonight from Sagewell. He is going to be joining us at our Clean Energy Task Force meeting this coming Tuesday, where we're going to be further shaping the program. We know you've got a full agenda, so Tim's going to give like a 6 or 7 minute overview. We've got a presentation for you, and then if there's any questions, we'll be happy to field those. So if I could invite, if some of you want to move
Sure.
and take the take seats in front, then I'll turn over to the channel.
I think those chairs might.
Okay, yeah.
Good to have you.
Well, good evening, and thank you very much for hearing from Sagewell today. So Portland is one of 4 kinetic communities that were selected by CEFIA, the Connecticut Clean Energy Finance and Investment Authority, who are using. So in those 4 communities, we've been appointed to run these energy efficiency programs. And what I intend to do today is just explain thermal imaging again, just a quick overview, run through the process for the communities, show a sample thermal image report and describe that, and talk about how we hope to get the word out in the community so that the most number of people can benefit from this. And then I'll quickly show you a mock-up of what we will build as the online presence for this for the community to access. So firstly, thermal imaging. The analogy we always use is if a homeowner sees a water leak in their home, they'd fix it. Everyone has energy leaks in their home and they don't see anything, so they don't do anything about it. The images here show what typical thermal images can show you in terms of the amount of heat that escapes the building envelope, and what these images really do is just act as a catalyst for action. They do not replace having in-home home energy assessments. They really are there to act as kind of a catalyst to get homeowners to do something about it. Our mission at Sagewell is twofold. Firstly is to make homeowners aware of the energy losses they have from their home, and secondly to kind of hold their hand through the process of getting stuff done. There are so many state and utility-sponsored benefits, rebates, and incentives for people to do stuff, but they can be complicated. So we like to think of ourselves as getting people to say, yes, I want to do something, and then being the facility that helps them get stuff done. The process for a community is, firstly, we take the heat loss measurements. You can think about this as just strapping a thermometer on top of a vehicle and driving through town. So all we are doing is collecting temperature measurements from the first thing that vehicle sees. So if it's trees and shrubs, we just measure the temperature of those trees and shrubs. If it's the outside of a home, we just measure the outside temperature. We work with local efficiency groups, the Clean Energy Task Force here, to get the word out. We then, if a homeowner, and only if a homeowner requests a thermal image report, we will go back to that data, those temperature measurements, and prepare what's called a thermal image report. And we only provide those to the owners of homes, so we verify ownership of the home, and this is just a self-imposed policy, and we will, once the homeowner has been verified, we will provide that online report to the homeowner. The idea is to get people involved in energy assessments in-home and to get them to take advantage of utility-sponsored rebates and incentives to make energy efficiency improvements. We then close the loop by surveying customers to make sure that the vendors and the people that are doing those improvements are performing adequately and are not leaving homeowners in any way dissatisfied. Okay. The online report that we deliver to homes this is a typical report. It's a collection of images which the homeowner can see, and then on the right-hand side, those are actually relative ratings. So what we do for the walls, the windows, and the doors, we say to the homeowner that those gauges show how much heat we've measured from that element when compared to that home's peers. So homes that are built in the same way with the same materials under the same conditions, and then we tell the homeowner whether the heat we've measured is in the top 10 percentile, the next 20, or the lower 50. So that just gives a rough idea about whether you need to focus on that area to make improvements. We always advocate that people then move on to take advantage of utility-sponsored in-home programs. The biggest thing that we ask for the communities is to get the word out. So we provide all the support and the back end. We provide the images. We provide a support line for homeowners to call, and we help people navigate through the system. What we rely entirely on the community for, however, is to get the word out. So all the usual kind of marketing truisms come into play. We kind of have deadlines for the community. Try and get to do this before a certain date. We like to have local people participating in getting the word out. You all will know best how to do that in the community. We like to have goals, so let's try and get to X hundred homes going through this program. Let's try and get to this many measures completed, and so on. What we are, and the very last point is that as we get success in the community, we publicize that success, and success breeds success, and and that's how we go through. The one-stop shopping bullet is really about offering homeowners, wherever they are in the spectrum of energy efficiency, whether they've done nothing or whether they've done a few things and just haven't done any more, we will offer, we have something for everyone. So at whatever stage you're at, we can help you get a little bit better in terms of energy efficiency. To do this, we will be building a website that will be accessible by everyone in Portland. We'll have a dedicated URL for that. These are just typical things that we offer in different places, just to give you an idea about what this thing will look like. The actual website will be built in discussion with Andy Bauer and the Clean Energy Task Force input to tell us what measures might be targets for the community, what things you think would most help reduce the town's carbon footprint, and what really the community wants us to do. And we hope to launch this within probably a few weeks from now. So as we put all the pieces in place, we will then try and get the word out, and we'll be asking for everyone's help to help us do that. That's all I had. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Maybe the selectmen can go back to their
Yeah.
dates, and if there's any questions, I want to thank you, Tim, for coming. I think that was very, very informative, and I think it was very well done. And thank you, Mr. Bauer, from the Clean Energy Task Force. I look forward to working with you on this project. Any questions from the selectmen? Mark?
I have one. Tim, admittedly, I was not here when the board approved this, and I'm not as enlightened as they are. But I was interested in your term of one-stop shopping.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you will assess any homeowner's individual energy needs, or does it mean that once the assessment is done, if windows need sealing, you'll seal the windows, if doors or windows need to be replaced, you'll replace them?
So the way the process works is, if a homeowner's done nothing, we will encourage them to get started with the home energy, in-home energy assessment. And regardless of what they might think they need and so on, we encourage everyone to get started with the utility-sponsored HES assessment. What that does is it adopts a whole home approach, and they start off by looking at the insulation in the walls in the attic. They will look at windows, and they will look at other measures such as, are there thermostats in this home, and so on. So we don't recommend any specific things to homeowners. If homeowners phoned us and said, what should I do? We would always say to them, get your in-home assessment first. The results of that assessment, we will be happy to walk through with homeowners when they call us to say, my windows are leaking, they're single pane windows, or they're bad double pane windows and they're leaking energy, and my walls are uninsulated. We will then at that point say, windows are it's never going to pay you to replace your windows, the cost benefit just isn't there. What you really want to do is insulate your walls. If you've done that and you've done everything else, then we can talk about renewable energy options and so on. So we try to be just a resource for homeowners to find out where they're at, and then find out what the next best thing they can do to get better.
But you do not make the repairs or the...
We do
replacement?
nothing.
Okay.
So we are not, we're a company that will just get this facility to the community. We will appoint vendors. I say we will appoint vendors. We will select vendors that for the community in partnership with the Clean Energy Task Force, and we will manage those vendors in that we monitor their performance, we find that we do surveys with homeowners just to make sure those vendors are doing what they're meant to do. In a big way, I should say that these are all vendors approved by Energize Connecticut. So these are all Energize Connecticut approved vendors that are going in to do in-home energy assessments.
So you will recommend vendors to the homeowners?
We will, we'll work with the Clean Energy Task Force to select probably 2 vendors in town, possibly 3, depending on which vendors can offer income eligible assessments. And then we will allocate, when requests come in, we allocate assessments to one or the other vendor depending on their capacity, how busy they are, what their backlog is, in order to get the homeowner the quickest service that we can.
And then do the vendors pay you a vigorish on that?
Yep, so the CEFIA who appointed us pay us for the thermal imaging portion. They then, because what CEFIA's goal is to do is to leverage private finance. So they paid a portion of our costs. The other part of our costs is paid for by referral fees from the vendors. Now what we've done is we have a uniform arrangement across all vendors. So we are completely agnostic in terms of which vendor does the work. Whichever vendor does the work, we will get a referral fee. The aim being that by the end of the program, we will have covered our costs by CEFIA having paid us some and the referral fees having paid us the rest.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Again, thank you very much, and I'm sure we'll get updates and reports through Andy in terms of what the Clean Energy Task Force is doing on this project, and look forward to working with you.
Sure. I just want to give a nod to Kevin Armstrong and thank him for putting together the shape files. It was a big help.
Thank you. I would agree. Does a fine job. Thank you.
It's
Thank
an
you, Kevin.
interesting presentation, but I think it should have come before the vote, not after the vote.
Well, the reason for that, Mark, and I do take your point. Our application to CEFIA was due on, I believe it was December 10th. And love them or hate them, sometimes these projects come up with not a whole lot of turnaround time. So I think I arranged with Susan to be put on the agenda right before Thanksgiving, for the meeting right after Thanksgiving. The Wednesday before that Friday when it was due is when I presented to the Board of Selectmen. And so it was a tight timetable. So I presented as best I could the information that Tim just expounded upon, but that was the time frame that was available to us.
It was a good presentation. Thank you. Next item is number 6, public comment. And the neighbors that are here to the Strickland Street, you will speak when we get to that portion of the agenda. The next item on the Selectmen's agenda is action on policies. And in preparation for tonight's meeting, I'll ask the Selectmen to go to the second document under your agenda. And what I did was I went through the policies that have been on the agenda. I think they've been on at least twice before. And I did receive some comments from one of the selectmen, and we did incorporate some of those changes. However, in my review after those changes, I am suggesting that the selectmen consider tonight adopting 4 of these policies, and 5 of the policies we take under further consideration, because those policies had changes made to them, including increasing the number of policies. We shortened up some and made them different policies. So there's a summary sheet dated January 15. If you want to pull your summary sheet. And accommodations for qualified individuals with disabilities policy. We had I believe, no comments on that as written. The drug and alcohol-free workplace policy, I didn't have any comments on that. Harassment and discrimination policy, same, no comments. And then the zero tolerance policy on workplace violence, I did not have any comments on. However, the policies under the next set, which is the town work areas and property policy, we've had some changes on that. The workplace privacy monitoring and internet use policy, changes, cell phone policy, and I made some of my own notes on your documents here that I'd like you to take a look at, and we can put on a further out agenda. And then personal use of social media sites policy, which I will let you know that there are some problems, I think, with this, that we're gonna have to work through. Some of our departments use social media, they use Facebook. I'll tell you that I look at Facebook 2 or 3 times a day because there's information on there, sometimes associated with the town, sometimes associated with things going on, Channel 3, Channel 30, there's a lot of information there. It's saying that you can't use social media while you're at work, and then it's saying that you can't enter data or enter information on it. And the senior center has a Facebook page. I don't know if Parks and Rec does as well. I know there are many departments. Early childhood has one. I know the library is contemplating one. The youth group within the library may have one. So we really need to take a look at these policies.
Can't you simply put a caveat in that says unless it is work-related?
I look at these things, they're not always work-related.
Well, shame on you.
Well, I don't think so, because people are putting opinions on it. Social media is not the way it was 12 months ago, let alone 24 months ago. There's a lot of information that's out there, and sometimes it's good information, and sometimes it's very poor information. And sometimes it's
But it's work-related.
everything's work-related, I suppose. Neighbors put information up there about mailboxes that got destroyed in a snowstorm, just as an example. That's work-related. I don't,
Well, it'd be work-related for you, but it might not be for Sean. I'm not picking on you, it's just because you're here. Okay, I guess I don't see where it's so complicated, but go ahead, whatever you want.
well, it's not whatever I want, it's what everyone wants, Mark. I'm just making
Yeah.
some comments about it.
I know that as an employer, that there are employees who use Facebook on their cell phones throughout the day in inappropriate times and inappropriate areas, and I think that's what you're addressing.
Right. But I don't think that this is
Not the fact that you're using it for
written.
town purposes.
Yeah. I understand, I just don't know how you can look at what's here. I don't think what's written here is what I'm saying is correct, and I'm asking that everybody take another look at it. But getting back to the ones on disabilities policy and the drug and alcohol-free workplace policy, the harassment discrimination policy, I think all of those, there were no further comments on. So this is a suggestion that I've made to try to see if there are some policies that you're ready to adopt, but I'll open it up for discussion.
I think I agree with you, Susan, on the first 4, with the exception of the zero tolerance policy on workplace violence. 'Cause
Okay.
there's a section there that I don't really understand why it's there.
Which
That's
one?
the prohibited employee behavior.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with workplace violence, and then we're talking about letter C, which is negligence.
Right.
So, I don't know, that means that if somebody, isn't paying attention while they're driving and they cause damage to the truck, they're going to be fired or possibly, I don't know that belongs there.
Mhm. The other thing that this is saying too is that, and we don't have this rule right now, no possession of firearms or any other type of weapon on town property or work location, except by employees that are required to carry weapons, is a violation.
We don't ban carrying firearms?
We don't have that on,
Well, it has to be.
we don't.
Well,
This will,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, that's.
Yes, that's why we need this. But if you wanna strike some of this, we certainly can. I felt that these first four policies are things that we really should have up to date in place.
I move that we adopt the accommodation for qualified individuals with disabilities policy, the drug and alcohol-free workplace policy, and the harassment and discrimination policy.
Is there a second? Second by Brian. Discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. And are you prepared tonight to give me any input on the zero tolerance? Do you want all of that, to the prohibited employee behavior taken off? I mean, are you not prepared? I thought the first one, Brian, was a little confusing.
I did too.
Conviction of a criminal offense arising out of the performance of duty or within the scope of employment which may affect the performance of duty.
I don't know what that means, but honestly, I can't think of an example where someone's convicted of a crime and then it's going to affect their ability to perform. Other than if they mean they're being sentenced and they're not available.
Let's bring that back with the others, and you can ask Joe about it.
Okay. Okay, very good. We will continue, and I will take another look at this social policy. I know the intent, Mark, I agree with you, but if you get to the letter of these policies, it may need to be changed, so that we can accommodate the work-related websites and social media. Okay. So we'll continue to work on those. The next item would be letter C under old business, which is appointments to boards and commissions. And we do have some this evening. Is anyone prepared for appointments? Just a minute, I have to actually stand up to look at all these papers. This is one. I think I had shared with you before. Oops. Sorry. What's that? Kathy couldn't be here tonight, and she had asked me to put forward a couple of appointments on her behalf. One was for the Economic Development Commission, Camilla Hank. Is there a motion? Is there a second to that?
Who made the first?
Brian.
I'll second it, but do we know anything about her?
I know her.
Okay, could you tell us about her?
She is an employee at TD Bank. She lives on Culver Lane. She's interested in getting involved in the Economic Development Commission, and came in actually to speak with me and asked if she could be part of the commission.
Sounds like she's in a position to help. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is she registered?
Yes, she is
As
registered,
a-
unaffiliated. Yep.
So I need a blank or unaffiliated, this game.
Camilla is unaffiliated.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. And then, the second name that Kathy asked me to put forward was Jim Probolis for the Ethics Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
It's nice that he's willing to serve. We need people in that ethics commission.
I would agree. Now,
Here.
He was on the Board of Ed for years.
yes, he
wasn't
was our chairman.
Oh.
Carl?
No, are you done?
Yes.
Okay. We had, I believe we had a few. I know we had, Mr. Cody, Dick Cody for sewer water.
Okay, so there is a
Is his term
nomination.
unexpired?
His term has expired.
Are we looking at expired terms here? right
The
now?
names that I gave to you are the names that are people willing to continue to serve.
Yes.
And one is Richard Cody, and it would be for a reappointment to the Water and Sewer Commission.
Yes.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Seconded by Ryan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Also, Christopher Donahue, Parks and Rec.
So Christopher Donahue
I think we might have put him on the last.
for Parks and Recreation. And is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And I believe Terry Larson for unethics.
Yes, that would be a reappointment of Terry for the Ethics Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And Mitch Kogut for conservation.
Yeah, a reappointment of Mitch Kogut. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ryan. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. So just to recap, Camilla Hank for Economic Development Commission, Jim Probolis for Ethics Commission, Dick Cody for Water and Sewer, Christopher Donahue for Parks and Recreation, and Mitch Kogut for Conservation Commission. Were there any others there, Sharon?
Terry Larson.
Terry Larson for
Yes,
Ethics.
Terry.
What was the one after Terry Larson, the one, did you say Mitch?
Mitchell, M-I-T-C-H-E-L, Kogut, K-O-G-U-T.
And what was that for?
Conservation.
The Conservation
Conservation.
Commission.
Thank you.
Are there any other appointments for tonight?
And Jim's on it, Provost. He's a Republican also.
Who is that?
For, on ethics, Jim
Jim Probolis
Probolis, yes.
is a registered Democrat.
Oh, he was down for.
There are still some openings, and we'll continue to review applicants that have sent in their requests. I want to thank everybody for volunteering. The next item, under new business, is discussion of Strickland Street cul-de-sac proposal. Tonight, we don't have any presentation. There was a presentation that I think some of you attended back in the fall on the proposal for the Route 17 Park project. So what I'd like to do is open it up for you to give us your comments tonight. It's an informal time. It's not a time that you need to go into any lengthy discussion unless you wish to. And what we typically do is have you come to the podium so that we can have it recorded. And if you would come up and just give us your name and your comments so that our recording secretary can put it into the minutes. So who would like to start? You can either start that way, or I can read the emails that I received, if you're not quite ready. Well, the specific proposal hasn't been made yet, but what essentially is on the table is that Strickland Street would become a cul-de-sac. So as you go towards 17 on Strickland Street from Bartlett Street, it likely would become not a cul-de-sac like they typically are at the end of a sort of dead end, but maybe more pulled towards 17. A teardrop, I think is what they call it. And it would then allow for the entrance and exit to the proposed park to be on the other side of that street. There are some wetlands that are near Route 17 that prevent us from having the driveway in certain areas to go in and out. So it would need to come a little closer to Strickland Street, Sean, or further away?
The entrance would be pushed up more toward where the connection of Strickland Street and 17 is.
Right.
But it would basically be, the idea of the cul-de-sac is that we don't have, or a couple of reasons. One is the traffic is pulling into the neighborhood, the other thing too is that, on our end, we just need to know the decision if it's gonna be a cul-de-sac or not, because we're still looking at the surveys and the plans. And, if we know it's a cul-de-sac, we can move forward.
Means we have to go.
Did somebody try to go out that door?
No.
It stopped. Go ahead.
So yeah, the answer is yes, the road would be before, we looked at the options, we had 4 options, we looked at the entrance next to the park. And the best option we looked at, we thought, if we had a traffic engineer from an engineering company go and take a look at it, because 17 is a difficult road, for various reasons, the speed, the hills. And the best option would be just slightly south where the 2 roads come together. And then the idea of cul-de-sacing it would give us, the idea would be that we wouldn't have all that access traffic if the park, was already built, going into the neighborhood. What we would need to know is, how we kind of start the process is, the earlier we can know if we can cul-de-sac the road or not, it depends on, you go to the design. The idea is to have one plan, and before we go to the state DOT and everything else, then we get the idea of the plan, is that if we know that we can cul-de-sac it, that was something the town would allow us, or allow to do, that would allow us to be able to come up with a specific design. If not, then we have to come up with a plan B for the entrance to the park. I don't know if that was a long-winded explanation or not, but.
Why don't I read some of these emails that I have received?
We have 2 here.
Yeah, do you want to read those, Mark, to start with?
I can.
Sure.
The first is from Leslie and Joseph Lawler, who live on Dolores Road. They said, we live on Dolores Road and will not attend the meeting, but you requested opinions on the cul-de-sac. Assuming the entrance to the park is on Route 17, not Strickland Street, we are in favor of the cul-de-sac idea. Keep the traffic on Route 17. There should also be the ability to break down the barrier in case of fire or emergency issues, such as a major car accident at the intersection of Bartlett and Gospel, or a large fallen tree, which I think is an excellent point that I certainly hadn't thought about. Thank you for the letter requesting opinions, Leslie and Joseph Lawler. The second says, of course, the logical thing to do is to make Strickland Street a cul-de-sac. It would certainly eliminate a lot of traffic going on to Strickland Street. I am, however, going to miss the convenience of the shortcut to Michael Drive, as I'm sure others in the neighborhood will. It will add a lot more traffic to the Bartlett Street Route 17 Four Corners. Maybe it's time for a traffic light at this intersection. I live on Michael Drive, and the nicest thing about the neighborhood is how quiet it is. I'm sure that will all change with the park, especially if the lights are installed. Those are the 2 that we have.
And that's Al Rosenthal.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Al Rosenthal, Michael
Now,
Drive.
I had one telephone comment from Maureen Lehman. She's on Bartlett Street. And she simply said she's against making Strickland Street a cul-de-sac.
No explanation as to why.
Nope, just didn't want it. Then I have an email here from Bill Hodge. And he says, "Hi Susan, I took my mail from my box this afternoon and saw a letter from you. And I didn't know if I was being informed that I was getting some kind of an award or
It's a tax.
or if I had to pay a fine for something I had neglected. I was relieved to find that it was neither one, and I hope you're doing well. I would like very much to be at the Selectmen's meeting on the 15th, but unfortunately, it conflicts with my meeting with the Connecticut Critical Incident Stress Management Team. That being the case, I would like to give you my thoughts concerning the plan to make Strickland Street into a cul-de-sac. I'll preface my thoughts by saying that I've given a great deal of thought to the plans for a park on the property on Strickland Street. I think the idea is commendable, as it would provide some great recreation space for the town, but I feel it's a much too ambitious plan for a town such as Portland, and that it won't be maintained as it needs to be and will eventually become an unattractive place. I also have strong worries concerning public safety in the park. In many ways, it's just not a good idea. That being said, I will say that I caution the town of Portland on the idea of making Strickland Street a cul-de-sac. If the town does build the park, I truly understand the safety concerns involved with traffic passing from Gospel Lane to Bartlett Street and back on Strickland Street. It's appalling, as it is, the number of people who not only speed through Strickland Street, but also totally disregard stop signs at John Place. Strickland Street sees a lot of traffic from the residences south and east of it, and a lot of traffic to and from the Portland Golf Club and Quarry Ridge Golf Club. I've had that complaint a lot.
They gotta make that TT time.
That's right, they might be late. The intersection of Gospel Lane and Bartlett Street will become the only means of coming and going to places east of Gospel Lane. That intersection is not extremely safe, as it is. Many times when I have approached it from either direction on Bartlett Street, I have encountered people that didn't grant me the right-of-way when I was supposed to have it. It's almost as if there are some people who, subconsciously, think that since they're on a main road, that is Route 17, that they have the right-of-way at all times. It does not happen often, but it's a hazard when it does.